All right, today we're going to be mathematical detectives. And our prime suspect, it's this one number, 24257. Now, at first glance, it looks, well, pretty ordinary, right? But trust me, it is the key to this absolutely fascinating puzzle, full of hidden connections and some really strange anomalies. So let's dive in and start the investigation.
And look, it's a fair question to ask, right? What secrets can a single number really hold? I mean, it's just 5 digits. But what we're about to find out is, oh, so much more than you'd ever guess. This number? It's not just a number. It's like the anchor for an entire hidden system.
Okay, so here's the case file, the rundown of what we're up against. First, we've got our main number of interest, 24257. Then there's this really bizarre V-shape that pops up in the data right at index 42. On top of that, there's some kind of mysterious link between two totally different points, index 5 and 58. So the big question is this all just a huge coincidence, or are these actual clues pointing to something much deeper? You know, in any good investigation, you start with your prime suspect. So let's do just that. We're going to put the number 24257 itself right under the microscope and see what it's really made of. And wow, right off the bat, we get our first big break in the case. You know, you look at a number like this and your first thought might be, hey, that looks like a prime number, only divisible by 1 and itself. But it's not. A closer look shows it has a hidden structure. It's actually a composite number. And believe me, that's where this whole mystery really starts to get good. More specifically, 24257 is what we call a semi-prime. And that just means it's the product of exactly two prime numbers. Now, this isn't just from random math trivia. Semi-primes are literally the building blocks of the cryptography that keeps all our stuff safe online. Their whole strength comes from that hidden structure. And here they are. The two hidden primes that make up 24257 are 127 and 191. And these are not just clues. You should think of them as the DNA, the genetic code for this entire mystery. The relationship between these two numbers, that's the key that's going to unlock everything.
But hold on, it gets even better. These aren't just any old prime numbers. Look at this. Both 127 and 191 have this really special property. They're both built from formulas that use powers of 2. Now that is a massive hint. It's basically screaming at us that this whole system is tied to binary arithmetic. You know, the fundamental ones and zeros language of computers.
Okay, so we've taken a good hard look at our prime suspect. Now it's time to bring in its accomplice, the data sequence where all those weird anomalies first showed up. And this is not just some random list of numbers. Oh no, it's generated by a very, very specific rule. So this is the engine behind the whole thing, the formula that creates the data. For any spot n in the sequence, this is how you get the value. The most important thing to see here is that 2 to the n part. That means this thing grows exponentially, like super fast. And that number at the end, 319, I know it looks totally random right now, but trust me, it is anything but. So here are a few of the first values just to give you a feel for how this sequence behaves. It starts way down in the negatives, and it actually spits out some interesting primes along the way. But then, look at index 6. Whoa. It gives us negative 127. That's one of our key prime factors. And then right after that, bam! The sequence crosses the 0 line and just explodes into positive numbers. Okay, so we have our mystery number, and we have the sequence it lives in. But here's the thing. They aren't separate clues. This is the aha moment. This is where we see they're really just two parts of a single, beautiful system. The whole case is about to crack wide open. And here it is. This is the master connection. Our big mystery number, 24257, isn't some random outsider. If you take our sequence formula and you plug in the number 13 for n, the answer you get is exactly 24257. It was hiding in plain sight the whole time. So that solves one mystery, but it immediately opens up another one, doesn't it? If the number and the sequence are this perfectly intertwined, then that constant, that 319, it can't just be a random number they picked. It has to be part of the system too. So where on earth did it come from? And this is the bridge that connects everything. It's just beautiful. The constant, 319, is built directly from the prime factors of 24257. You just take 127
add 191 to it, which gets you 318. Then you add 1, and there it is, 319. It's incredible. The sequence was literally designed using the DNA of its own 13th member.
All right, now we're talking. We've cracked the central code, we have the key to the whole system. So now we can finally go back to those weird anomalies from our original case file and see if they make any sense with what we now know.
Okay, first up is that weird V shape in the data. So the original observation was that there was this minimum point, like the bottom of a V, right at index 42. But that doesn't make sense, right? We know mathematically our function is a smooth exponential curve. It shouldn't have a sharp V in it anywhere. So what is going on? Well, it turns out a V shape does show up, but only if you're looking at the data in a specific way. You have to plot the difference between the sequence's value and our key number, 24257. And when you do that, the real minimum, the actual point of the V, is at index 13, where the difference is 0. So the V is real, but it's at index 13, not 42. Okay, let's just pause on that. The observed minimum was at 42. The actual mathematical minimum is at 13. And the difference between those two numbers is exactly 29. Now, you have to be asking yourself, is 29 just another random number? And by now, you should know the answer. In this system, there are no random numbers. And there it is. The number 29 just happens to be one of the prime factors of our system's constant, 319. Remember, 319 is 11 times 29. This means the anomaly we saw isn't wrong at all. It's just shifted, offset by exactly 29 spots. And that lag comes directly from the system's own DNA. So the anomaly isn't an error, it's actually proof of the hidden rule. So that just leaves one last thing. What about that supposed link between index 5 and 58? Well, now that we've completely crocked the core system, we can say for sure there's no mathematical connection there at all. Nothing. This is a classic case of something called apophenia. It's just our brains being a little too good at seeing patterns, even in random noise. It was a red herring all along. Whew. Okay, we've solved all the individual clues. So now let's take a step back and just look at the absolutely beautiful big picture we've uncovered. What does all of this actually mean? It means that what looked at first like just a random jumble of numbers and weird coincidences is anything but. It is a completely deterministic, beautifully structured system. Every single piece, the number itself, its factors, the sequence, even the so-called anomalies, they all grow out of a single elegant logic that's rooted in the arithmetic of powers of 2. There's this quote from the original analysis that just sums it all up perfectly. Trust not the apparent randomness of this data. It follows a strict reconstructible law. I mean, that's really the lesson here, isn't it? Underneath what looks like chaos, there is so often a hidden logical order, just waiting for us to find it. And that really leaves us with one final big thought. We just decoded this entire hidden world behind a single number. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other coincidences out there in the world aren't really coincidences at all, but are actually hidden patterns, just waiting for someone to come along and crack the code?